throttle, you can actually feel it like sit back up. 60. I mean, the car is actually really quick.
Welcome to Drive Culture. I'm Jonathan Rivers, and today we have the 2025 Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. And I'm going to tell you why this is one of the best hybrid sedans on the market today. So we'll go over the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, take it for a drive. So if this is content you're after or you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. And with that, let's get after it. Now, this generation of Civic has been a hit. When it launched as a 2022 model year, that was a full redesign, right? And it brought a new lineup of Civics full of new technology, design, and features. Now, the hybrid that we have here today only showed up recently as part of the mid-cycle refresh for the Civic. In fact, it is this model year, 2025, where they added both a Sport and a Sport Touring Hybrid trim to both the sedan body styles and the 5-door hatchback Civic body styles as well. In fact, we already have a full walk around of both cars side by side, so be sure to watch that. And we have a singular video on the hatchback body style, so if you like that better, feel free to watch that video as well. But today, we're gonna cover the sedan. So let's first talk about trims and pricing. So like I mentioned, you still have the petrol versions of even the sedan body style. We'll put the pricing up, but it starts in the low $24,000. Then, you get up into the hybrid trims, and there's only two. There's a Sport, and then there's a Sport Touring Hybrid, which is what we have here today. So all the bells and whistles. This one has a $31,750 MSRP. Now, that doesn't include the paint, and this is a premium paint called Blue Lagoon Pearl. And right now, it's exclusive to the Civic and the sedan at that. This Civic Hybrid sedan is the only car in the lineup you can get this new blue color from Honda. So let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Do you like it? Is the right shade of blue? Is it good for a hybrid vehicle? It is an additional $455 on top of that MSRP, but I think it looks really good. With that said, I think we've covered all the trims and pricing. So next, let's go ahead and do a full walk around of the exterior. All right, guys, here we are with the exterior of the 2025 Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. And like I just mentioned, this is a new blue, a new color for Honda, and a new color for Civic, and it's only on the Civic Hybrid sedan right now. So let us know if you'd like to see this on other Honda models or even other trims. I think it looks really good. It also helps to show the character lines on this car, despite being a slightly darker color. But let's go ahead and talk about the front end design. So Civic was already really attractive, but they just did this mid-cycle refresh for 2025, and they really changed the front fascia of the car. It's completely different from what it was before 2025, and it looks a lot more aggressive. So let's talk about what we're working with here. We got LED headlights, daytime running lights, which look really nice. But really, like I said, you kind of got this entirely new, more aggressive front fascia, which in my eyes kind of reminds me more of the Civic Type R with this like big front opening down below. Now, all of it isn't open, right? Some of it is actually blocked off for aero. Some of it's open for function, right? Helping to cool the engine, the radiator, things like that. But again, I think it's a really attractive design. You have the big H mark there. With this being the Sport Touring Hybrid, you also get 4 parking sensors, 2 in the upper grille, 2 down in the lower front fascia. Below the headlights there, you get these kind of eyelids, whatever you want to call this here. And on this particular trim, they're painted body color. So on some of the lower trims, they're actually finished in black. So, the original plastic. So let us know if you like it body color or not. Actually, one of the other things that's painted on the Sport Touring trim is this lower lip. This piece here is actually body colored, but normally that's going to be the black plastic that you see here with the honeycomb mesh. So again, I think those are some nice little touch points there as part of the top end package. And then you also have those kind of inlets there off to the side. But again, it just kind of really made the Civic look a lot more aggressive, despite not being one of the SI or Type R level trims. And that front fascia carried over to the hatchback as well. So again, let's go ahead, make our way. Let's just do a quick full side profile here. So again, this is the difference, guys. If you want the hybrid, you can get it in both the sedan or the hatchback body style. But I mean, that's really what it comes down to. As you'll hear once we get to the drive portion, they essentially drive the same. They have a lot of the same features and technologies, but it just comes down to the looks and the body style and whether that extra utility that you get in the hatchback is actually worth it to you here. But I'll tell you what, I really like the styling of the sedan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the 5-door, the hatchback still looks good. Of course, that's the body style that's used on things like the Civic Type R, but there's something to be said about this traditional sedan body style, which I think they nailed with the overall proportions and design. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wheel and tire package here. So of course, being a hybrid, you have some low rolling resistance tires here. These are Continental tires. And again, like I said, they're really made for ultimate fuel efficiency. So these are 235 40R, but these are 18-inch wheels. So pretty good sized wheels. What they are is this kind of what they call sharp gray finish that's then matte and then machine finish to give it this kind of really premium looking wheel design, I think. And that's part of this new 2025 mid-cycle refresh. So again, whether you get the sedan or the hatchback, you're going to get this new wheel design, which again, I think looks really, really good. With it being the sport trim, you do get the black mirror caps, LED turn signals, which is nice, as well as the black window molding as well. You got really nice sharp character lines that carry all the way the length of the vehicle, intersecting that gas cap, taking us to the rear. Won't cover the wheels in the back. They're square setup, the exact same as the front. But let's make our way to the rear. And like I said, this is what sets it apart from the hatchback. So again, you have a traditional opening trunk. We'll show you how that works in the cargo section. But all the Civics, have this kind of like almost like spoiler that's built into the top of the trunk, right? It's like this ducktail spoiler almost built in, and I think it looks really classy and really premium. So you have the Civic badge over to the left, the H badge prominent in the middle. You do get a sport and a touring badge up top, as well as that hybrid badge there down off to the side. So there are a lot of badges back here, really kind of designating what trim and model you have. So let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below if that's too many badges for you. But overall, I think it's clean. There is, of course, a rear backup camera, 4 parking sensors on this top trim, but you'll also notice that down below there's no exposed exhaust finishers here. Part of that is that hybrid design, kind of eco-friendly image, but again, I think it looks really, really clean. They kind of updated that rear fascia for 2025. So again, I think overall, I like the sedan, honestly. I think, maybe if you need the usability, you go hatchback. But for me, I think the exterior design of the sedan is really, really good. So next, let's go ahead and hop inside to talk about the interior. All right, guys, here we are inside this Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. So first, let's talk about the overall feeling and materials inside the car. So again, like I said, this car is just under $32,000. So in the grand scheme of things, in today's market, that's actually kind of low pricing. I mean, the average pricing for vehicles these days is like easily in the high 40, almost $50,000. So to still get something in the low 30s with this much premium, feel, materials, and technologies, I think is still a pretty good deal. So first and foremost, let's talk about the steering wheel. It's a great shape. right size diameter. It's leather wrapped on this trim with contrast stitching. All of your volume controls off to the left, all of your ADAS safety controls off to the right. You do get paddle shifters here. They're not necessarily for shifting gears. We'll talk about how they operate and what they do during the drive portion. Straight ahead, you do get a 10.2-inch digital instrument cluster on this top trim. It's really nice. It's configurable. If you pull up the ADAS, a little Civic pops up and it shows you what other vehicles are around you. And again, it's just really nice display, and it's, can show your music, navigation, all those things. There is no head-up display on Civic, but again, I think that's a really nice feature given the price point. Here in the center display, it's a 9-inch color touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto functionality, but it also has Google built in. And if you've seen some of our other videos, you probably already know what that is, but real quick, I'll just explain. Simply, it's 3 apps, right? So it's Google Maps. That means it's embedded navigation for the car. You don't need your smartphone, anything like that. It's the Google Assistant, so you can say, hey, Google, do these things for me. And you can also use what's called the Google Play Store to download new apps into the car. So those 3 key features are built in on this top trim. Really, really nice. You have a physical volume knob and power button and things like that off to the side too. So that's really, really good for usability. Down here in the center area, though, the dash, really premium materials. It's, soft touch up top. You got some piano black treatment here, that kind of now iconic honeycomb mesh that goes along the HVAC vents, which they introduced in this new generation Civic design. But one small thing that they changed is they actually have this little like gray trim that, goes all the way around the vents. That's something different for this new hybrid design. So that's, you get it on both the left side and the main dash. So nice little change there. You still get really good physical controls here. It is dual zone climate, and you do get 3-stage heated seats. So we'll talk about the seats now. They're really, really nice, material. Again, this leather, contrast stitching. There is power functionality for both the driver and passenger, so that is really nice. There's also some good, features and connectivity here in the center console. You have 2 USB-C charging ports, one for data, one for just strictly charging. Of course, you got a 12-volt socket. Down below of that, you have a wireless charging pad, which works really good. Here in the center console, you got a mechanical shifter for your gears, your little toggle switch for your drive modes, an electronic parking brake, and that brake hold function. 2 pretty good sized cup holders, and a nice little center armrest here that lifts up to expose a pretty deep area down there. You can fit all kinds of stuff down there, which is nice. Of course, a traditional glove box. Now, one of the other things I'll talk about is you do get a moonroof in here. It's not a panoramic moonroof, but again, it does have a shade that opens and closes. Sunglass holder, which is a nice touch. And lastly, let's talk about the audio system, because on this top trim, you get that Bose premium sound system with 12 speakers in the car. And admittedly, I had to go in and adjust my sound settings. I had to turn the bass up a little bit, I felt like. But once I did that, I thought it sounded really good, no matter what audio source I was listening to. So let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Do you go in and tweak the equalizer? What are your settings? Things like that. So again, there's a lot of great key features and technologies in this car for just under $32,000. So next, let's go ahead and hop in the rear to see if it matches that. All right, guys, here we are in the rear of the Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. So this is my actual driver position where I'd be seating. So yeah, I have lots of space back here. And again, as always, I'm about 5'10", tons of knee room, easy to get my feet, up underneath the seat. Tons of headroom. I think that's one of the big differences between the sedan and the hatchback. The hatchback kind of slopes down a little bit more, so you lose a little bit of the headroom versus the sedan, but it's super spacious back here. And while there is a small hump in the floor, you could still fit 3 people back here, no problem. Definitely comfortable for 4 people in the vehicle. The materials are still really nice, leather material on the seats, contrast stitching. You still get the same materials on the door linings that you get in the front, so these kind of chrome, door handles, some piano black treatment here, and a little bit of nice materials here on the armrest as well. You only get one matte pocket though, that's here on the passenger seat, and again, you have a armrest that pulls down, so it exposes 2 cup holders here, but that's really all you get. And just as a reference, I do have a car seat here in the back. Super easy to attach the latches. You could easily fit one of those mega rear car facing seats if you had an infant or something like that. But again, the Civic, even though it's a entry size car, it has tons of space for a full family, so no compromise there. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the cargo space. All right, next, let's go ahead and talk about the cargo space of the Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. So again, this is going to be one of the biggest change points between getting the hatchback or the sedan, is really the trunk space that you have. So of course, there's a button inside to pop it open. There's a lever here to pull to open. And of course, there's the button on the key fob to open as well. And one of the nice things is if you push and hold, the button it actually is spring loaded and pops right up. So that actually is a really nice feature. Especially if you're holding a bunch of stuff and you just can't reach for it, right? So once you open it though, there's a huge opening here. Easily fit, a set of golf clubs back here. There's actually 14.8 cubic feet of space. Now, that's really good for a small sedan like this, but to be fair, it's almost 10 cubic feet less than the hatchback, right? That hatchback has almost the same, I think it's actually identical cubic feet to something like a Honda HR-V, a small CUV. So that's how much extra utility you get. But to be fair, the opening is huge. The seats do fold down. There's these latches here for the 60/40 folding rear seats, and you even get just a little bit of underfloor storage as well. There's a nice cutout here in the foam compartment that houses the tire repair kit as well. So really good space back here. But next, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain. All right, next, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain of the Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. Now, the thing is the hatchback and the sedan have the exact same powertrain. So you're not losing any performance. And as you'll find out here quickly in the drive review, they very much are the same vehicle. Really, again, it comes down to that body style and usability between the hatchback and sedan. But let's go ahead and cover the powertrain details. So this is Honda's 2-motor hybrid system. It's very complex, but I'll give you the very simple explanation of how it works. So essentially, there is a Atkinson 4-cylinder engine, right? You got to put gas in this thing. It's a hybrid. So there is an engine at play here, but mated to that engine is an electric motor, which is essentially acting as a traction motor, generating energy, sending it to the battery, right? And it never lets the battery get fully depleted. Secondarily, there's another motor that basically drives the wheels, right, and keeps the car going. And in most cases, that's the motor that's giving the power to, get you moving forward. And it really feels like driving an EV, especially at low speeds. And it's not until you really get it to maybe a cruising speed that it actually connects to the wheels and is driving it. And then you start to hear the engine working as a generator. But outside of that, it's a very quiet experience. And a part of that is this really cool 2-motor hybrid system. Now, in this configuration, if you combine the output from the motors and the engine, the total system output is 200 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque from 0 RPM. So that's what's really important, and that's what makes this thing look and feel like an EV when you drive it. So there's no better way than to prove that out than to get behind the wheel. So next, let's go ahead and take this thing for a drive.
All right, guys, here we are inside the 2025 Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid. And we're going to go ahead and take this thing for a drive. So go ahead and put on my seatbelt here, foot on the brake. There's a power button here. And that's it, the car's on, right? You don't even know that it turns on, right? Because it's so quiet, right? And that's going to be something I repeat over and over during this video, is because, like I said, talking about the powertrain, the car essentially acts like an EV. In fact, in the digital instrument cluster right now, it says EV ready. So in most cases, it's just that electric motor that's powering the wheels, right? And so it really does act like a BEV. Now, obviously, once you get into certain driving conditions and at freeway speeds, it actually engages the front wheels with the shaft, and then that way it kind of helps with the overall fuel efficiency. But in most cases, it's the actual electric motor driving the wheels. So again, complex, but hopefully that's a simple way to describe it. So as always, we'll go ahead and take off and we'll talk about the drive modes and just overall driving impressions. So you got the mechanical shifter, pull it back to D. Again, I've kind of put this tip out there. If you have your seatbelt on, you don't actually need to push down and disengage the electronic parking brake. You can literally just give a slight press of the throttle, and that automatically disengages the parking brake and you can go. But I do have brake hold on as a feature. I really like that as well. So we're just gonna start off in normal mode, the default driving mode here, and hopefully you'll just get a sense for just like, man, how quiet the vehicle is, not only from like an NVH, noise, vibration, harshness standpoint, but just even from the engine and the powertrain. Now, I'm really going slow here, let's say like 20 miles an hour. So some of that is essentially this angel sound, right? That, again, hybrid vehicles and EV vehicles, they have to emit this sound at low speeds to basically, give awareness to pedestrians and the people around the vehicle that a car is actually approaching them. In most cases, people don't actually even know because the car is so quiet, and they look and all of a sudden the car's right up on them. So that's a government regulation to make sure that people know that the vehicle is, approaching, right? But once you get over around like 25 miles an hour, most cars, that sound goes away, right? So you're at speed, you don't need that humming sound anymore. But if you don't have that, like right now, there's like no sound coming from the powertrain. You don't really hear the the engine. In this case, you're starting to hear maybe a little bit of the engine, and all that is basically acting as a generator, as I mentioned, and trying to juice back up the battery. But there it goes, it completely shut off. And you also get the EV pop back up in the digital instrument cluster. So as I mentioned, there's drive modes, there's a little toggle switch here. Let's just talk about the modes. There's essentially 4 of them. You have an econ mode, which dials things back a little bit. We'll go ahead and drive in that for a minute. Again, that's just going to try to give you the maximum fuel efficiency, but it's not hard to do in this car, even in normal mode. It gets really good MPGs, guys. If you actually try to hypermile it a bit and just take it easy, which I'll do for most of this drive, you can get really, really good fuel economy. The actual city rating for the hybrids is 50 miles per gallon right now. Combined, it drops down a bit and whatnot, but I mean, basically it's really easy to actually get 50 miles per gallon. It really is. Now, obviously, if you're in sport mode and getting into it a little bit, yeah, that's gonna obviously drop down. But I've been driving this thing for a while, and even if you do drive it in sport mode and drive aggressively, you can still get in like the low to mid 30 miles per gallon, which is pretty impressive, given like, just again, the fact that it's still a pretty fun and sporty car to drive. So that is awesome, quite frankly. So we're gonna go ahead now. Like I said, I was driving in econ mode. Normal is the default. The next one is sport. We'll wait to get into that in a second. And then there's also an individual mode. Now the individual mode here, it basically says press and hold to customize. So you just kind of push up on the lever. And then what that does is that kind of shows you a couple different settings. So you have powertrain, steering, engine sound, and gauge. Those are the 4 parameters you can set in your individual setting. But really, again, I think the car in its standard, normal, and sport drives so well. I don't know if you actually have to go through and adjust anything, but let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Would you actually adjust your individual settings? Let us know what your settings are down below. Be curious to hear that as well. So we're gonna go over some pretty aggressive train tracks here. I mean, it's super compliant. Chassis is really good. The Civic chassis is amazing. Suspension setting is really good. Very, very good. If I go back now, I'm going to go into sport mode. So one of the things with sport mode is now you get a little bit heavier steering feeling, and it's instantly noticeable. The other thing is the throttle response just kicks in. And so here I'm going to actually come down to basically a complete stop. Let's do a wide open throttle from 0 miles per hour. Here we go. Sport mode, full wide open throttle. You can actually feel it like sit back up. 60. I mean, the car is actually really quick. Like, you know, a lot of magazines have timed it in like the mid, 6 seconds, 0 to 60, like 6.6, I think is what a lot of magazines have clocked this car. And I believe it. It feels legitimately quick. I mean, honestly, from a stoplight race, you could probably beat a Civic Si. I mean, if the driver of the manual is really good and doesn't get a lot of wheel spin, they might take you. But in most cases, I think you might actually beat a Civic Si because it pauses for a second and then it just goes. And it gives you this little bit of like feeling of G because that 0 RPM, that electric motor, it's actually a really, really powerful motor. And like I said, from a stoplight, you can actually surprise a lot of cars because they wouldn't expect the Civic to just dart up and take off like that. So here we are again, going in sport mode, so just wide open throttle. What's interesting is there's a power percentage meter over here in place of your typical, RPM gauge. And essentially it goes from 0 to 100% power because it's trying to show you how much power it's actually putting to the wheels. But, like I said, it takes some getting used to read that meter. But in most cases, I mean, you're using 25 to less than 50% of the power only until you're like wide open throttle. So going all the way to 75 and 100% power to really extract all the performance out of this thing. Now, the last thing I'll talk about here is the paddle shifters, right? So I mentioned them before in the interior. There is a minus on the left, a plus on the right. And essentially what they do is they initiate the regen braking for the vehicle. So when you're driving, normally you don't have regen braking. You have to use the brakes. I hope you recognize that. But if you pull the paddle shifter once, it gives you a couple down arrows next to the D. And it also puts an M next to the D for manual setting to notify that you're now controlling the regen braking. And essentially you have different levels of it. Now, in this Civic, you've got 4 levels of regen, which was the same for the CR-V Hybrid. And we've got reviews of that up on the channel. So if you haven't watched those, be sure to watch and like those videos as well. We also have the Accord Hybrid on the channel as well. And that one has as many as 6 levels of regen. Now, with that, the Accord essentially can be like one pedal driving if you're in that 6th most aggressive level of regen. But here on the Civic and the CR-Vs, it has 4 levels of regen, and that doesn't give you a full one pedal driving style, but it does help to regen and slow the vehicle down, as well as just give you back some energy and help with the overall fuel efficiency. So it is really nice to be able to control the regen. Once you get used to it, you can play with it, and especially in the sport mode, essentially it'll kind of like keep your setting for the regen and just drive around like that all the time. When you're in normal mode, the regen setting will actually eventually just go back to the default D driver setting. So again, if you really want to take advantage of it, you should actually be in the sport driving mode. But anyway guys, this was a great video for me because I've driven now the sedan, the hatchback, the Civic Si, the Type R, all of the Civic products, even the regular sport model. We have videos of all of those here on Drive Culture. So again, if you haven't watched any of those, be sure to go back, like, watch, and if you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that as well. And let us know what other hybrid vehicles you want to see on the channel, what other competitors to Civic you want to see to the channel. We're happy to bring all of that here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this drive video.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. What did you think of the 2025 Honda Civic Sedan Sport Touring Hybrid? Is this really one of the best Civics in the entire lineup? I mean, they've got everything from the regular, petrol engines, now these new hybrid engines. Of course, there's still the Civic Si, and of course the Peak, the Type R. But is this the best car in the lineup? Is it the best sedan in America? And is it the best hybrid in America? Those are all arguments that can be made considering the value, features, tech that you get for this price point. So let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. And again, if you've joined us before, thank you so much. But if you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. Thanks, and we'll see you at the next episode.